Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Gimel of Masechta Sheqalim. What do you guys think Daf Gimel talks about? Well, we're going to wrap up the first Mishnah of Masechta Sheqalim. Then we learn on, anybody who's following along in the book, so you're going to notice that we get up to Halacha Beis. What in the world is Halacha Beis? So the way the Yerushalmi works is it works in Halachis. So basically, we're going to finish Halacha Aleph, we're going to get to Halacha Beis, which starts with the next Mishnah, and then we're going to get up to Halacha Gimel, which gets us to the Mishnah after that. So, that's, we're going to talk about different inyanim regarding Sheqalim. So, let's go weiter. Hey, Breeze, how you doing? Oh, okay, here she is. Ooh, surprise visit. Wait, are the teeth coming back? Let's see. Wait, show everybody. Oh my gosh. Kol hakavod. That's very good, Brielle. Wow, you came in just in time. We're about to get started. Alright, anything you want to say quick?
Go check out my channel.
Check out Brielle's channel? Are you allowed, is you allowed to tell everybody about your channel? Yeah? So tell them. Tell the whole world.
Me and my friends upload videos almost every day. We do gymnastics like every day. We did a video, and her brother filmed it and gave it to me, and I posted it. We did it at like 5 a.m.
That's very early, Brielle. Alrighty, see ya.
The name is Brielle.
Brielle Raps, okay. Remember that name. Bye. Oh, that was funny. Alrighty. Let's go weiter. Misaknenes Adrachim. So what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that we fix up, right, on the 15th, one of the things that we said that we do on the 15th of Adar is that we fix up the roads. Ve'es harchovis, in the streets, ves mikves hamayim, and the mikves, okay? Ve'osin kol tzorkei harabim, we do all sorts of things that are public needs. So, what are these things that are public needs? Elu and tzorkei harabim, these are the public needs. Don in dine mominus, we judge monetary cases. Dine nefashis, capital cases. Dine makis, lashes. Ufodin arachim v'charabim v'akdeshes, and we redeem makes more sense for some things than others, but basically, you pay off erech. What's erech? Who could tell me what erech is? Very good. Kol hakavod. Pat yourself on the back. Erech is when you say the value of so and so is upon me. It's at the end of Parshas Pikude? No. Bichukosai? I think. I hope it's not Pikude because we just read Pikude. That means I was spacing out, falling asleep at the wheel. I think it's Bichukosai though. Unless it's Vayakel? Don't tell anybody, okay? Anyways, the end of one of the Sfarim in the Chumash. Ooh, I feel bad letting you down. Akoponim. So there are set values for people, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're this age or that age. So we pay those off. V'charabim v'akdeshos basically means things that you designated to the Beis Hamikdash. Umashkenes asota. So podet charum v'akdeshos is like, so if you makdish your field or something like that, so you'll pay its value to the Beis Hamikdash. Umashkenes a sota, if you have a sota who needs to drink her drink, so we do that. That's considered tzorkei harabim. V'sorfen es hapara, we burn para aduma. Now I believe that this is a Mishnah in Moed Ka'in, I believe, and I think it's saying things that you could do on the sort of tzorkei harabim that you could do on Chol HaMoed, but we're saying that it's the same tzorkei harabim that they would be doing on the 15th of Adar. So they burn the paraduma, v'orfen es egla arufa, and if you have a fellow who they found dead between two cities, so then you take a calf and you chop its head off. So you do that too. V'rotzin eved ivri, if you have a Jewish slave who wants to extend his enslavement for another 6 years, so you can pierce his ear. If you have a fellow who is a leper, so and now he's no longer a leper, so you can make him tahor. And what they would do is they would gather water throughout the entire winter. The winter, it's the rainy season. So in the rainy season, they would have these cisterns and they would collect water and they would lock them up during the rainy season, and then they would open them up during the summer season so that people have water. So you can do that. Ve'ein machzirin osan tamon. And we don't, unless the Talmud goes on the next thing, and we don't put it back until the end of the summer, basically, right? So they would remove the lock from the cistern and then keep it off all of the summer. I think it's maybe Tamon Taninon that Dar'in we learn in a Mishnah in Moed Ka'in. Mashkin Beis Hashlachin. So the Gemara is going to ask a shaila that it says in Moed Ka'in that on the 15th of Nisan, basically Chol Moed Pesach, you're allowed to irrigate a field that requires irrigation. Now, right, u'metzayin es hakvaris, and you can also mark the graves. Now, lo kvartzinu me other. So that's the shaila. You guys got that? That we had said in our Mishnah that one of the things that they do on the 15th of Adar is they mark the graves. But we're saying that on Chol Moed Pesach, which is a month later, you can mark the graves. But didn't they already mark the graves a month earlier? So v'tiftar, you can answer sheyared shetef shel geshamim v'shatfu. You could say that a deluge of water rained down and washed away the markers. So that is why they might have to do it again in Nisan. V'yotzen afal kilayim. And they also go out on Chol Moed Pesach to see if there's any mixtures in people's fields so that they could uproot them. Lo kvar yatsu me'adar, but again, didn't they already go out and do this on the 15th of Adar? Why are they doing it in Chol Moed Pesach? So tifta, you can answer Shaisa Ashana Afela Beinat Smachim Nikarim. So you could say, well, it was a late year that things started getting ripe late, and therefore it came Adar time, there was really nothing to uproot, so they had to go out on Chol Moed Pesach. Minayin L'Tziyun, how do we know that you mark graves? Reb Brechia, Reb Yaakov bar Bas Yaakov, B'Shem Reb Chunya Devas Chavron, Reb Yosa Amri La Reb Yaakov bar Acha B'Shem Reb Chunya Devas Chavron, Reb Chizkiya Reb Uziel Breid Reb Chunya Deves Chavron B'Shem Reb Chunya Deves Chavron. Alright, we just scored like 5 lines of Gemara right there. Basically, a whole bunch of people said. V'tami Tami Yikra, nu. The pasuk says that when you have a Metzora, you got to call out, Tame dude over here. Tame dude over here. So that the impurity will be calling out to you with its mouth, so to speak. And basically, you want to announce to people, get away from the Tumah. And therefore, just like by the Metzora, we say, get away from the Tumah, so the same thing applies to Tumas Hames. We say, get away from the Tumas Hames, and that is why we mark the graves so that people will know to stay away. Now, it's very interesting because that's starkly different than the other limud that we learn out from Tami Yikra, which is that, I believe that we saw this together already, although I can't say where, maybe Masech the Brachos or Shabbos. While we're at it, maybe it was Erev and Pesachim also, but I think it was earlier rather than later. Anyways, with Tami Yikra, that they will say, that they call out Tami, how come? So that people will daven for the fellow. Very interesting. Rabbi Ila b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman says that the pasuk says va'avra ovim ba'aretz, that people will pass through the land, va'etzem adam uvana etz l'tziyun, and they will find the bone of a fellow and they will build next to it a marker. Etzem, when it says etzem, mikan shemitzayin al mishemitzayin al ohatzomis. So because it says etzem, bone, so that's how we know that you mark the bones. Meaning if there is pashit, a bone of a fellow, etzem kisora is mitame, I think in all sorts of, b'imago umasa, I believe. Actually, I don't think it's mitame ba'oel unless there's like the majority of the body or something. Things like that. So if there's epis a bone, so we make a marker that there's a bone here, stay away. Adam, where am I? Right, Adam. When the pasuk says Adam, right, it says they'll see etzem Adam. So mikanshim mitzayne ala shidra v'agulgoles. Okay, so that's how we know that you got to mark up where there's a spine and a skull. Uvana, when it says you'll build mikanshim mitzayne agabe even kivua. That's how we know that you sort of make this marker with like plaster or whatever on some stone that is like fixed to the ground on the grave. Okay. Im omer al gabe even tlusha afi oleches umetame b'makom acher. Now, if we would say, meaning it has to be, you're gonna make this marker on a stone that is like stuck to the ground, that's settled in the ground. Because if it's a stone that is not settled to the ground, well, then it might roll away to somewhere else, and then all of a sudden people will start thinking that there's tumah in that other place, and then if there's nafkaminis, because if there's truma, kodshim, things like that, then they're in that area, then you'll assume that they're tameh. You're going to burn tameh. You're going to burn things that you thought were tameh, but really the tar is just a stone that rolled away somewhere. So therefore, we only mark stones that are fixed in the ground. Etzlo, when the pasuk says next to it, so the makom tara, so it's near, meaning you're going to put it in a tahor place. Don't put the marker directly on top of the tumah, because if it's directly on top of the tumah, you might end up making an oil over the stone. But rather put it at somewhat of a distance, so that even if you end up making an oil over the stone, you're not actually over the keep the marker a little distance away from the actual tumah, so that you don't get too close to the tumah. Okay, where else are we? Okay, so that's how we see that it is that you taka make a tziyun. Okay, fine. Umata even achas mitsuyanes afal she'ein mikaimen kain hamayil alea tame. Okay, ani omer meis mitsuyan ve'nosun tachtea. Okay. Oh, so I think that they taka change the girsa shtickle, and they say, what's the shtickle girsa change over here? Meis haya nosun. And now, of course, I lost my place. Oh gosh, this isn't going well. Meis haya nosun tachtea. Period. Let's back up like 2 lines, whatever. So umatza even achas. No. So if you found like just one kind of stone, mitsuyanis afal pisha ein mekaimen kain. So even though we said that you shouldn't just like mark like one loose stone, nonetheless hamayil alea tame. Nonetheless, if you make an oil over it, it's still going to be tame, because ani omer I'll say meis nasun tachtea. Period. Because I'll still say that maybe there is a mace under it. So we said that you don't just like take a single stone and put a marker there, because we said it might roll away or whatever. But nonetheless, if we do see a stone that was marked, so if you made an oil over it, you're going to be tummy, because we have to be concerned that you taka that there was a mace over there. Now, if there were 2 stones with a marker on it, but in between there was like some space, so then the assumption is that if you make an oil over those stones, you're going to be tahor, because the assumption is, he says uvenei and tame, and in between is tame, meaning the assumption is that that the space in between the 2 stones is where the mace is buried. So if you make an oil over the space in between, so then you're going to be tame. But if you make an oil over the stones on either side, you're going to be tahor. But what if the space in between was plowed? Now the assumption is, if it's plowed, then mistama, they didn't plow a dead body, so mistama, then the space in between the stones is taka tahor. So namayil, where am I? So haya choresh b'intayim harehen kichidos. So then we treat them as though they were just like single stones. B'nei and tar, so people saying tame, right? Which means that the space in between the 2 stones is going to be tahor, since it's plowed, and we assume that there's no dead body there, since you wouldn't plow a dead body, and the stones then just are treated like single stones, which we said a minute ago would be tame. Tani, we learned in the Brisa, emetzainen ala basar, sheminisak ala basar. So we don't make a marker over a place where there was flesh over there, because what happens once the flesh gets decomposed? There's no longer any flesh, in which case you're going to have a marker there for no reason, and you can, if there's like truma or whatever that makes like an oil over it, you're going to end up burning it, even though really it was fine because the flesh is already decomposed. Reb Yusta b'shem Shunem, no, Reb Yusta bar Shunem ba'a kumi Reb Mana. So Reb Yusta bar Shunem, he asked from Reb Mana, v'lo nimtza matame tyrus l'mafreya, but what's going to happen if like there really is some flesh of a fellow darton, and what happens? So there's a flesh of a fellow darton, and you don't make it tziyun, because we said that you don't make it tziyun, because what happens when it decomposes? But then somebody brings some truma over there, so lemaisa the truma is going to be tamei, and we didn't have a marker darton. So So Reb Mana said, yeah, but still better to have this sort of temporary situation, which is that for the short term, there might be some dead meat darton, but in the long term, the meat is going to decompose, and then it's going to be completely tahor. So we don't want to put a stone there forever, so that for all of eternity, I don't know, as long as this marked stone is there, people won't, people are going to be matame tyros potentially. So we say leave it alone. The flesh will disintegrate, will deteriorate, decompose, and prefer that than to leave a marker there for all of eternity. Halacha Beis. We are now up to the second halacha in Masechta Sheqalim, which begins with the following Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, "Rabbi Yehuda bar Rishona, you okrin umashlichin lifneim." So originally, the fellows who would go out and check for the kilayim in the fields, for the mixtures in the fields, so then they would rip them out and they would throw them out for the dogs. So, they would rip them out of the ground, they would throw it in front of them, whether for the dogs or for their animals, whatever it is. Misharabu over Avera. Now, what was happening though, is that lots of people were being nudniks and leaving their kilayim there, so that they'll get free everything. People will come for them, they'll weed their gardens for them, they'll throw them for their animals, it's full service. So people were being nudniks and they were intentionally leaving their fields. So instead of throwing it for the animals, they would throw it out onto the road, and then it would get ruined because people would walk on it and stuff like that. So at least, so they were still a weeding service, but at least they weren't also feeding your animals for you. And then what ended up happening was that they were being even more nudniks, and they were still appreciating the free weeding. So then the Chacham had to say, you know what, we're just going to be if this happens, then we're just going to make, if people, if all these people are not paying attention and leaving their fields with kilayim, then forget it. We're just going to make the entire field hefker, ownerless. And as we're going to learn, hefker bezdin hefker, that the courts have the power to make somebody's property ownerless. And therefore, if you're going to be ignoring what you're supposed to do, well then, we're going to make your stuff ownerless. Be careful. Rabbi Yehuda Chulei says, Rabbi Yehuda, Tani, we taught in a brayso. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda bar Rishona initially, are you okrin umashlichin lifnein? Are you smechim shtei smachos? So initially, these people would come around, and they would find kilayim, they would rip it up, and they would throw it onto the floor. And the people were happy 2 times. Achas shayu menachshin sedosein. Number 1, they were getting free weeding service. Ve'achas shayu nenin min hakilayim. And number 2, they were getting benefit from the kilayim because it was being thrown to their animals. Now they have animal food. And they don't have to do anything. All they have to do is be a nudnik. Misharabu over avera. But once this was becoming too popular, hayu mashlichan ala drachim. So they would throw the kilayim onto the road, so at least, it would get ruined. But they still had the free weeding service. Afal piken, are you smechim shayu menachshin sedosein? So the people were still happy because of the free weeding. Hiskinu sheyihu mafkirin kol asad kula. So then the Chacham decided, that's it. We're just gonna, if people aren't going to be weeding, they're going to be removing kilayim from their fields, we're just going to make the entire field ownerless. Frekti Gemara, the Gemara Sakasha. Minayche hefker bezdin hefker. How do we know this inyan? How do we know that bezdin is able to make property hefker? Tichsiv, as the pasuk says, v'chol asher lo yavo l'shloshes hayamim, and Ezra says this statement. He says, anybody who doesn't come for 3 days Ba'atzas hasarim, as is advised by the officers, v'azkenim, and the elders, yochoram kol ruchusho v'yibadu mikol agola. So all of his property is going to become cherim, off limits, and he is going to be separated from the community of the exile. So we see that Beis Din has the ability to make somebody's property cherim. Minayin shehi p'turim min ha'maisers. And how do we know that when Beis Din makes something hefker, it's putter from meiser? So in the event that somebody didn't remove the kilayim from his field, and the Beis Din makes his field hefker, so then how do we know that all that produce is going to be putter from meiser? Because hefker is putter from meiser. So how do we know that this, it's mamish hefker and it's putter from meiser? So Rabbi Yonasan Brei, the Rav Yitzchak Bar Acha says, Shma la min hada. You can hear it from the following: in ma'abenes hashana lo b'shvius v'lo b'motzai shvius. We do not make a leap year on Shemitah or on the year following Shemitah, right? So of course on Shemitah we don't want to make a leap year because it's hard enough to find food to eat on a year where you're not working the fields. We don't want to extend that year by another month. Right? And we also said also not on the next year, because the point is, because you're not allowed to, when you make a leap year, when do you make a leap year? In Adar. Now Adar is before Nisan, and the Chadash, as we learned, I believe in the beginning of Masechta Pesachim, that Chadash, the new grain, is only able to be eaten once the Omer was brought on the second day of Pesach, which means if you add an additional Adar, you can't eat the new grain on the year after Shvius. So it's the year after Shvius, and finally you get your first harvest. If they make a leap year, then you still can't eat that first harvest for an extra month. So for those reasons, we don't make a leap year on Shvius or on the year after Shvius. And if they did make it a leap year, so beseder, it's fine. If they made the leap year a leap year, if they made like Shvius or Motzai Shvius a leap year, it's fine. Meaning it works. There you go. Now, the Chachamim are the ones who are making the extra month, who are saying that we're going to add an extra month. And Mistama, that extra month during Shvius, is going to be pater from Meiser. How do the Chachamim have the ability to make something pater from Meiser? It must be that Hefker Beis Din Hefker, and that is how they, if they just say that, there's going to be another year, another month in the year, they could also make the produce of that month hefker, and it's pater from meiser. Huad kidun shvius, motzoi shvius mai. Okay, so I understand about shvius, but how come? Right. I understand why we wouldn't want to increase shvius, shmita, because people need to eat. But how come we don't make a leap year on Motzai Shvius? So Amr Rabun Shalorabos Be'isr Chadash, as I was saying, because we don't want to increase the period of prohibition of the Chadash, so therefore we don't add an extra other. Reb Zeira b'shem Reb Elazar Hada Da'at Amar Ad Shlohiter Rebbe Lahavi Yerek Michutza La'aretz. Interesting. So says Reb Zeira b'shem Reb Elazar that this inyan of not making a leap year during Adar, a leap year during, wait, what am I even talking about? That we were saying that we don't make a leap year during Shemitah, so that was only before Rebbe enacted that you could bring produce from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael during Shemitah, or maybe even in general. So that was Ad Shelo Iter Rebbe, that was only before Rebbe permitted Lahavi Yerek Michutz La'aretz, to bring vegetables from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. Aval Mishiyiter Rebbe Lahavi Yerek Michutz La'aretz, he shvius, he shall shar shnei shavua. But once already Rebbe said that you're allowed to bring food from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, well then there's enough food during shvius, during Shemitah, and so you can make a leap year if you need to. Tani ema'abim v'chulei. Omer Rab Mana Hadada at Omer Berishona Shayu Hashanim Kisiknon. So says Rab Mana, right, that when we say that you don't make a leap year on Motzai Shvius because we don't want to extend the Isser Chadash, that was only back in the day when things were normal, pre-COVID, but even way before COVID, apparently the world was normal. That was at the initially Hashanim Kisiknon, all the years were in their proper way. Aval Achshav Shein Hashanim Kisiknon, Hi Shvius Hi Shar Shnei Shavua. Hi Motzoi Shvius Hi Shar Shnei Shavua. But now that, right, there's a girsa change, which makes sense. Right, but now that in general things take longer until they're ripe anyways, so it doesn't really, nothing's ready yet anyways. In an event where, meaning, how come you're going to make a leap year? Well, because, right, so that, right, the Aviv, the spring is going to be in the spring, right? Once the years are creeping up, and already, even this year, Taka, things are very, right, Pesach is very early this year. Pesach is in March, I believe. So it's very, very early. So, if we keep at this rate, it's going to be getting earlier and earlier. So therefore they push off. They add another year so that things will be later. So nowadays though, that meaning, so apparently at a certain point things used to get ripe earlier, but at this point apparently things get ripe later. So even if you would make a leap year, it's not like things were ready beforehand anyways. Tani Shabbos Rabban Gamliel Ebruah Motzoi Shvius. So apparently, by Rabban Gamliel's house, they would have no problem making leap years on Motzoi Shvius. So we see that it's taka okay, fine. I think maybe miyad kilu Motzoi Shvius miyad period. Amr Reb Avun ein min hada leisat shmamina. What in min hada leisat shmamina? That's something like Yerushalmi, I guess. Meaning, if you're gonna prove it from here, we don't learn anything. Meaning, again, how are we learning Hefker Bezdin Hefker? We were learning Hefker Bezdin Hefker from the fact that we said that, well, the Chachamim can add an extra month to Shemitah, and when they add that extra month, you're not gonna have to take Meiser from that produce. How could they do that? It must be that they have the power to make something hefker, and therefore you don't have to take meiser from the hefker. So hefker bezin hefker says Reb Avun in minada. If you're proving it from there, leis at shmamina klum. You can't learn out anything from there because shamar es chodesh aviv shomeru she'aviu b'chidusho. The Torah says already. Right. We have a pasuk that says shamar es chodesh aviv. Guard the month of spring. I.e., make sure that, as I was saying a minute ago, if the winter, if like the seasons are creeping up into the winter, so then push it off. So the Torah already gives you the green light to make leap years. And therefore it's not the Bezdin that's adding the month to Shemitah. It's that if the year is getting, things are creeping up and holidays are coming too soon, so then you make a leap year. And that is why if they would end up making a leap year on Shemitah, it would be Hefker. You would be pater from Meiser, because the Torah says that you're allowed to do that. So it's nothing to do with Hefker Bezdin Hefker. V'haida Omar Da, and if you want to prove it from the following. How do you know Hefker Bezdin Hefker? From the following. Godish shelo lukat tachtov kol hanogos ba'aretz arein shelanim. So what if you have, what's leket? Leket is that there's three inyanim. There's leket, shechacha, and peah. Peah is the corners of the field. You leave, I think, one corner of the field for the for poor people. Shechacha is if you forget certain things, certain stalks in the field, so you leave those for the poor people. And leket is that if certain grains fall while you are processing things and collecting and harvesting things, so then you leave that for the poor people as well. What if a fellow didn't leave any leket? So then what you do is gadish shelaluka tachtov. So if you have a pile and you didn't leave any leket from it, so then kol hanogos ba'aretz arein shelanim. So any of the produce that's touching the ground, the bottom layer, is for the poor people. Vam Reb Ami, and says Reb Ami, b'shem Reb Shimon ben Lakish, the Beis Shammai, that we said that is Dafka Beis Shammai's opinion. That Kilu, that if we're gonna make something, right, that something has to be, if it's gonna be hefker, it has to be hefker for everybody. It has to be hefker for poor people, for wealthy people, for everybody. And therefore, they're the ones who say that a person could make his produce ownerless only for specific people, i.e., only for poor people. So in this case, you have the bottom layer of the pile, and we're saying that becomes leket, i.e., it's for poor people. And so he makes it basically hefker for the poor people. And according to Beis Shammai, you could do that. You can make something hefker only for certain people, only for poor people. And therefore, if it's hefker, it's pater from meiser, it's regular leket. The ki Beis Hillel, because if it was Beis Hillel, now Beis Hillel says that you're not allowed to do it. If you're making something hefker, you have to make it hefker for everybody. And if you're making it hefker for the poor people, you have to make it hefker also for the wealthy people. So then aniyim ochlin u'ma'asrim. So if it's Beis Hillel, if you're going to say that you're only the bottom of it, well, the bottom of it is going to be hefker for the poor people, well, that wouldn't actually be hefker, and therefore they would have to take meiser from it. V'amalei Rabbi Yossi, shamanu shehu pater mimeiser tivrakol mishum knasa. So responds Rabbi Yossi that actually it's even according to Beis Hillel. That even according to Beis Hillel, the bottom layer of the pile is going to be hefker for the aniyim, and they don't have to take meiser from it. Why not? I thought according to Beis Hillel, you can't just make something hefker for only aniyim. Well, because it's not the fellow making it hefker, it's Bezdin who's deciding that it's hefker. It's a knas, it's hefker, Bezdin, hefker. It's that Bezdin is saying, we are going to make the bottom layer of the pile hefker, because he didn't separate leket, and we are making it hefker only for the aniyim, and hefker, Bezdin, hefker, Bezdin has the authority to be able to do that. So says Rabbi, who says this? Can somebody remind me who says this? Reb Avun. He says that we learn out from the fact that the bottom layer of the pile becomes hefker only for poor people, and they don't have to separate meiser. It's because Bezdin is making it leket, and therefore and available for the poor people, and it's hefker, Bezdin, hefker. Masnisim, we have a mission that says b'chamisha asar bo, that on the 15th day of what? Nisan. No. 15th day of Adar. Shulchanus hayoshvin b'Medina. The money changers would sit in. So apparently, it's taka machlokas between. It's a machlokas if Medina is referring to Yerushalayim or it's referring to outside of, meaning like anywhere it's outside Yerushalayim, outside of the Beis Hamikdash, or Eretz Yisrael outside of Yerushalayim. Let's go with Yerushalayim outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So b'chamisha asar bo. On the 15th of Adar, Shulchanos hayoshvim b'Medina. So then the money changers would sit in the Beis Hamikdash. Outside of the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim. B'chafei, on the 25th of Adar, Yashvu b'Mikdash, they would sit in Har Bayis already, and they would be there to change money for the people coming in from with different currencies. Mishayashvu b'Mikdash eschilu l'mashkin, and then already from the 25th of Adar, when the money changers sat in the Har Bayis, so at that point the officials would start going around to people's houses, and if they weren't giving the machzis a shekel, then they would take a collateral from them. Esmima mashkinin, who do we take collateral from? Levim v'Yisraelim, we take collateral from Levites, Israelites, v'gerim, converts, v'abadim, and slaves, mishucharim, freed slaves, because freed non-Jewish slaves become Jewish. Aval lo noshim v'abadim ktanim, but not. We don't take collateral from women, current slaves, and from minors. And if you have a little fellow whose father already started donating a machzis, a shekel for him, even though he doesn't need to because he's a katan, he's a minor, but if his father began already contributing a machzis a shekel for him, so then his father will continue contributing that machzis a shekel from then on. We don't take collateral from the kohanim because of darkei shalom, and the Gemara is going to explain what that means. Amr Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda Hayed ben Bukhri Yavne, that Ben Bukhari testified in Yavne. What did he testify? Kol kohen sheshokel eno chote. Okay, so Ben Bukhari testified in Yavne that Kohanim do not contribute to Machatzis HaShekel, but if they do, they are not sinning. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, low-key, that's not true. Take, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was a kohen. We learned that in, I think it's Taka Rashi, Masechta Shabbos and Daf Lamed Gimel, I believe. Or Lamed Daled maybe? Lamed Daled, I think. Upon him. So, Amr Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, low-key, that's not true. Ela kokoyin she'eno shokel chote. Rather, Kohanim must contribute the Machatzis HaShekel, and if they don't, they're sinning. Ella, rather, the Kohanim try to convince themselves that they don't need to bring the Machatzis HaShekel for the following reason. Shakohanim darshin mikra zela atzman. They have their own way of rationalizing from the following pasuk, b'chol minchas kohen kalil tiyeh lo se'achol. That the pasuk says that if you have a kohen who brings a korban mincha, so then it's not eaten. It just gets burnt entirely. So now, what happens if their funds if their Machatzis HaShekel that they contribute to the Beis Mikdash is used to fund the korban omer or the shtei lechem or the lechem apanim? You're gonna have to burn it. You're not gonna be able to eat it. So therefore, to just stay clear of that possibility, they don't participate in the Machatzis HaShekel. Although Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai feels that this is bogus. We don't take a collateral from minors. So we don't take collateral from them, but we do extract the Machatzis HaShekel from them. Hadad Tamar b'she'evi shtei cyrus. Now that is specifically, however, if they already reached puberty. They have 2 pubic hairs. Aval im lohevi shtei cyrus. But if they did not reach puberty, lo bida, they don't participate in this thing. And now I think that there's another funny gears to change. Ema mashkin acha yehe ben esrim. Yeah, that's exactly it. Ulamashkin ema mashkin acha yehe ben esrim. Fine. But we don't take a mashkin until they become 20. So what do we see? So we see that Pashit, a little kid, so he doesn't contribute the Machatzis HaShekel. Although it sounds like if his father starts contributing for him already, so then his father would continue to do that. Once already they hit puberty, so then at that point they are included in the Machatzis HaShekel donation. And once they're 20 years old, then we start taking collateral if they don't contribute. So our Mishnah had said that we don't take collateral from the Kohanim because of Darkei Shalom, because of the ways of peace. What's the ways of peace? So says the Gemara, no, it's Mipnei Derech HaKavod, out of honor, out of respect. We want to respect the Kohanim, so out of respect for the Kohanim, we don't extract collateral from them. That's interesting. Amr Yehuda Heid Chule. So Rabbi Yehuda had said that this Ben Bukhari, he testified in Yavne that while the Kohanim do not have an obligation to donate the Machatzis HaShekel, they may if they would like. So, Amr Brechya says, Brechya, time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, so the reason why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says that the Kohanim are included in the Machatzis HaShekel is because Zeh Yitnu. Pasuk says Zeh. Now, Zeh is 2 letters, Zayin and Hey. B'gematria, Zayin is 7, Hey is 5, 7 and 5 is 12. So, Zeh Yitnu, Yud Beis Shvatim Yitnu. All 12 Shvatim should give the Machatzis HaShekel, including the Kohanim. Reb Tavi b'shem Rav Amnuna Ken Meshivin Chacham Reb Yehuda. So Reb Tavi says in the name of Rav Amnuna that this is how the Chachamim would respond to Reb Yehuda, right? Reb Yehuda quoted Reb Bukhari's opinion that the Kohanim do not separate the Machatzis HaShekel. Now, but if they do, they aren't sinning. So the Chacham would respond to Rabbi Yehuda in the following way: Chatas Yachid Mesa. Well, we know that as we learned at the end of Masechta Psachim, right? Meaning right before Arvei Psachim, at the end of the 9th parak of Masechta Psachim, we learned out that there are 5 types of korban chatases that just starve to death. Ein chatas tzibur mesa, but the same would not be true for a communal offering, right? So an individual korban chatas, there are situations where it would starve to death, but that's not the case by communal korban chatases. Minchas hayachid kreva kalil, vein minchas hatzibur kreva kalil. And similarly, there's a distinction between the individual korban of a kohen, a mincha of a kohen, and a communal mincha of a kohen. That whereas, meaning Ben Bukhri, Rabbi Yehuda quoting Ben Bukhri, was concerned that, well, what would happen if like the Omer or the Shtei Alechem or the Lechem Apanim was brought from their contribution, you would have to burn it. No, just like when it comes to Korban Chatas, there's a difference between an individual Korban Chatas and a communal Korban Chatas. So also, when it comes to meal offerings, flour offerings, there's a difference between individual and communal. So that whereas, yes, an individual Kohen's flour offering would be burnt, but when it's a communal offering, it would not be burnt. So there's nothing to worry about in terms of like donating shekels to the Beis Hamikdash. Right? Fine. Vikasha, but 1 second, the Gemara digresses for a minute. So interestingly, 1 second, you can't ask a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda based on the fact that a korban chatas that belongs to a communal, right, that a communal korban chatas doesn't starve to death. Ditnan, as we learn in the Mishnah, she'ein chatas tzibur mesa, that the communal korban chatas doesn't starve to death. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Thomas, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says the taka does. So meaning, we had asked the kasha that we asked against Rabbi Yehuda is that just like when it comes to a korban chatas, that there are 5 situations where a korban chatas needs to starve to death, but that's only by a yachid, not by a tzibur. Guess what? Rabbi Yehuda doesn't actually agree with that. He says that by communal korban chatas, the same would apply, that there are 5 cases where it would starve to death. Okay, v'hu mosiv lan, and then the Gemara goes back to our topic, which is, we said, hey, according to Rabbi Yehuda, how would, according to his logic, how could it be that the Kohanim could offer if they want to, that they don't have to, but if they want to, they can? But what if, based on his logic, what ends up happening if the Omer or the Shtei Alechem or the Lechem Apanim is brought with their shekels? So, zo lo nidvas yochid hi. Period. So, he'll say, look, I'm suggesting that l'chatchila they shouldn't offer their shekels out of this concern that what if these minchas are brought with their money. But l'maisa, at the end of the day, it's not an individual Kohen's flour offering, and yes, if they do offer the machzos shekel, and the machzos shekel is used for the Omer or the Shtei Alechem or the Lechem Apanim, Rabbi Yehuda admits that it would be okay because it's a communal offering, and that is why if the Kohanim offer machzos shekel, ultimately it's going to be okay. V'inun, and we masiven lei, we respond to Rabbi Yehuda, kimin shenimtzor letzibor kimi shehu nidvas tzibor, that since these offerings, the Omer, the Shtei Lechem, Lechem Apanim, are given over to the congregation. It's just, right, it just becomes like a communal offering, and there's really nothing to be concerned about. And that's why the Kohanim are able to, the Chatchila, according to Chacham, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, offer their machzos shekels with everybody else. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Kol over al apkudim, that anybody who passes, right, right, this is everybody who's going to offer the korban pesach, the machzos shekel. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia, machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. Chad Omer kol da'aver biyama yitain, that anybody who passed through the sea gives their machzos shekel, including the Kohanim. V'charna Amar, and the other one says kol da'avar apikudaya yitain, only somebody who went through the census needs to give his shekels. Man da'amer kol da'aver biyama yitain. So the Mandamar who says that anybody who passed through the sea of reeds when they left Egypt, contributes to machzos shekel Messiah Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. That's what's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who says that everyone contributes, even the Kohanim. Mandamar called the Avra Pikudaya Yitain Misayeh Leven Bukhri, and the Mandamru who says that anybody who went through the census, now the Levim were excluded from the census, so that is going to be like Ben Bukhri, who says that the Kohanim do not contribute to Machzis HaShekel, although if they want to, they can. Well, that was Daf Gimel of Masechta Sheqalim. Yeah, the truth is, I didn't really prepare a proper recap today. I'm sorry. So, all I could say is that we saw halachas Beis and Gimel, and we learned about being misak and derachim and different communal things, and we learned about when they would uproot the kilayim from all the fields, which we said that initially they would do a full service, uproot the reeds, and then throw it in front of throw it out for the animals, but then people were taking advantage, so they just would uproot it and throw it on the street, and then they just would make the whole field hefker, which got into the interesting sugya of the concept of hefker, bezdin, hefker, that the bezdin is able to make property ownerless. And then we discussed kind of towards the end we said minors are not included in the Machzis HaShekel, but once they hit puberty, so then they are included, but we don't take collateral from them until they hit 20. And at the end we saw the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda quoting Ben Bukhri and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, whether or not Kohanim are included in the Machzis HaShekel. Ben Bukhri says no, but if they contribute, it's okay, they're not sinning. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says ma pitom, of course they are included in the Machzis HaShekel. Chevre, have a great day, peace out.